The anime starts with a boy, Makoto, who playing on a field with her friends. While playing they discussed and she got upset thinking that her sister ate her meal. Just then, a person threw the ball so high in the sky that her name was Chiaki. He hurriedly called out to watch out for the ball as she stared blankly into space. The ball hit her with a loud thud, then she discovered that she was dreaming. She saw her alarm next to her and she was shocked that time was gone. She was late for school, which made her hurriedly prepare. She greeted her parents before heading out of the house, but her mother called her back. Her mother gave her a nylon full of some fruits, then instructed her to give them to her aunt, which, after these instructions, Makoto ran out of the house and hurriedly drove her bicycle to school dangerously. She met her friend on the way, Chiaki, who made fun of her, stating that she must have woken up late, but she didn't mind him and they hurried to school. Luckily, they happened to get to class in time before the teacher entered the class, but the lecture surprised them with a quick quiz. Makoto thought in her mind that she isn't poor at school, nor is she the smart type, but it happened that she was very poor at school, as she stared widely at her blank paper. She thought that she isn't clumsy, but in turn remembered a time that she almost mistakenly burnt up the kitchen during a practical. She thought that she rarely gets injured, but then remembered walking on a field and she got injured by a person playing. Later in the day, when Makoto received her quiz script, the teacher asked her to try harder. A classmate suddenly called out her name, so she closed the script. The girl asked her if she'd decided on the department she would go to, but she was blank about what to do. While staring down the window, a friend of theirs called out to Makoto, but she didn't go with them because the girl reminded her that it was her turn to clean. This made her begin arranging, and on entering the storeroom she noticed the writing on the blackboard which says time waits for no one. She heard some noise which made her curious, then she entered the science lab. After walking for a while, she tried opening the door back, but she noticed that the door had gotten shut. Suddenly, a pebble-like structure fell on the floor, then she walked closer to the object. On bending down to pick it up, she saw the flashes of a person passing through the glass flask in the lab, which made her scream out loud, and she fell with a loud thud, hitting her head on the pebble. Her fall caused her to go back in time, as she kept falling into the hollow depth. When she opened her eyes, she saw that she was in the science lab. She went home with her friends, who mocked her, saying that things don't just fall on their own. Their words made her angry, so she tried to prove that someone was there. Later, they played games together on a field, and when it was late, she hurriedly left her friends so her mom wouldn't be angry with her. But the day didn't get any better, as she drove dangerously and almost hit a short woman. She thought in her mind if she had worked up earlier, probably the day would have been better. Then suddenly, she had an accident and mistakenly jumped past the rail while a train was passing. She was very lucky that she didn't get hit by the train, but the dwarf woman once again got injured by her, and this caused the woman to speak angrily to her. The street clock began to ring loudly, which caused her to check it. Then she saw that there was a time shift, the time was earlier. She hurriedly went to meet her aunt, which, fearfully asking her if she was still alive. The lady knew what was wrong with her cousin, so she took her to her office and then explained that she had a time leap, that's why the time was earlier. At home, while in the bathtub, her aunt kept disturbing her because she had told her that if she remembers the trick she used in time leaping, she could do it again. After she was done bathing, in her room, she thought deeply, then tried time jumping, but she ended up falling heavily, causing her mom and sister to be alarmed, who thought an earthquake was about to happen. Her sister came to her to check out what was happening. Then she saw Makoto trying to jump out of the window. The scared little girl anxiously held onto her sister's top and tried dragging her back, and they both fell. While still holding her sister's cloth, she pleaded with her sister that she shouldn't kill herself. She stopped holding onto her sister when Makoto told her that she was just going to a convenience store. But rather, she went to the football field and continued thinking. After a lot of thought, she felt what her aunt had said was impossible, and nothing like time leaping existed, so she went running once again. This time around, she unknowingly time leaped and got teleported to her house. In their fridge, she saw her pudding was left untouched, and she noticed her family entering in. Deep in trance, she suddenly realized that she was still on the street as she fell. The little children who had seen her wondered how she was able to run fast, then disappear for a while. Their words affirmed that she could time leap, so she happily practiced once again and went to her home. The next day, on her way to school, she didn't ride her bicycle but instead used the time to leap and quickly got to the class, which surprised her friends. Due to her new ability, she was able to escape being the clumsy one while in the baking class, and she got a perfect score of 100. Her friend asked her what her dream is, and she said she would travel out, which had the young girl puzzled because she knows her friend has always failed. After the class, she and her friend went to a karaoke bar, and with her ability, she was able to rewind the time. They were to use just 5 minutes, but they used hours because of her ability, and she was very happy. The next few days go by with great enjoyment for Makoto, who boasts to her aunt that nothing can go wrong with her life now, and even if something goes bad she can just time leap and fix everything up. Her aunt warns her that if she is enjoying it, someone must be suffering in her place, which sounds unreasonable to Makoto, who brushes it off. But soon, things start getting a bit out of hand. It all starts the day when one of the juniors of the school, Kao, comes up to Kusuke to ask if he is dating Makoto, and she asks him out on a date. Kusuke catches up with his friends and relates how he had rejected her. This makes Chiaki wonder what would happen to the group if one of them started dating. and while returning home with Makoto, bluntly he asks her out. Makoto hasn't really thought of him as anything else than a friend ever, so she time leaps hoping he would not bring up this point again. But Chiaki seems adamant about asking her out. She uses her time leap one more time and avoids him instead to get rid of the question. For the next few days, she continues to avoid the boy until she realizes that Yuri has a crush on him. Lately, Tasek was being bullied by some boys for ruining cooking class by causing a fire, so he decides to get back at them one day. As he is blasting them with a fire extinguisher, wonder where the teachers are. By the way, Makoto notices him and realizes that it was because of her that he had gotten to this situation. Unfortunately for her, Tasek also realizes that Makoto was the one who had put her in that place and throws the huge fire extinguisher at her. Chiaki comes in time to stop it from hitting her and hurts himself instead. Not wanting him to get hurt, Makoto time leaps and pushes him aside. The fire extinguisher hits Yuri instead. She has to be taken to the school nurse. The whole situation brings Chiaki and Yuri close and they start dating. Later that day, as Makoto is taking a bath, she is pretty pissed at Chiaki at how quickly he had changed his mind after confessing to her just days before. She suddenly realizes that there is a strange numbered tattoo on the back side of her arm. It says 96. She doesn't give much attention to it. Since Chiaki was now dating and the group was now only her and Kusuke, Makoto has a lot of time on her hands. She decides to go to her aunt one day and she shows Makoto a painting. The painting is a strange one, in that they don't know if it is of any value or was even made by anyone special, but they know that it's old and from a time of war and famine. But it doesn't have any symbolic meaning. They don't know who made it and what it represents. It is a still image of nothingness. Over the next few days, Makoto goes back and forth in time trying to fix some of the things that she had made go wrong. While doing so, Makoto realizes that the tattoo on her arm was actually a counter which counted down the number of times she had leaped, and she figures out that once it reaches 0 it was all done for her. Her time leaping is over. With her last 2 leaps remaining, Makoto leaps back to the very first day to figure out who was in the science lab before her, who it was that she saw. She goes there and finds that it wasn't anyone at all, it was in fact her hallucination. Just then she gets a text from Kusuke who tells her that he is taking Kaho on her bike to his father, who had injured her legs after her accident with the hooligans earlier. Makoto's eyes widen. She remembers that the bike's brakes won't work today and Kusuke would get into that accident she got in, the one that was supposed to have killed her. She rushes out of school, calling him all the way while hoping nothing had happened. When she reaches the scene, Kusuke hadn't arrived there. He must have taken a different way. Makoto breathes a sigh of relief and gives a call to Chiaki to ask if he knew where Kusuke was. Chiaki picks up and tells her that Kusuke went home and then asks Makoto one question: are you time leaping? Makoto gets flustered. She doesn't want to answer this question and she decides to use her last leap to make sure that Chiaki didn't ask it again. Just as her last leap is done, Kusuke and Kofu pass by on her bike down the same hill. The train comes on the tracks and the bike strikes the guardrails. A frantically racing Makoto is unable to stop her friends from the fate they were destined to. The couple on the bike fly towards the train, but suddenly time stops. Someone else had time leaped. It was Chiaki. He comes to her as the world around them freezes. He tells her that he was from the future, a future where time travel was made possible. He comes to see the painting that her aunt had shown her earlier and had planned to return to his original timeline afterward. But as time flew by, he realized it was so much fun staying alongside them. He had almost used up all his time leaps as well and had used this final one to save Kusuke, his source of extra leaps. The walnut had somehow been misplaced and landed on Makoto, who had used that power for now. He tells her that the future is terrible and wanted to spend some more time with them, but now that he had broken the rules by telling the people of the past about time travel, he would evaporate the next day, a punishment for breaking the rules and staying in the past. Makoto cannot hold back her tears, but there is nothing she can do. Chiaki just disappears. He doesn't even show up the next day in class. Makoto knows that he is gone for good. As she sulks all day trying to come to terms with what had happened, she realizes that she had one time leap left. Earlier, Chiaki had time to leap her back to the point where her time leap count was still 1. She uses this time leap to go back in time to the very first day, July 13th, and recovers the used up walnut from the science lab. She confronts Kusuke and tells him not to use her bike and then rushes to where Chiaki is. She tells him everything that has happened and tells him that he should go back to the future while he has his one leap left. She tells him that she will make sure that the future is not terrible and promises that she will take care of the art and culture and make sure it remains for them to witness in the future. With that promise, the two embrace, and even with a heavy heart, Makoto bids her friend farewell with a smile and some tears. Her life goes back to normal, but now she was more confident in herself, and one thing for sure, she now knew what to do with her life. She would be an art preserver just like her aunt to save ancient art for generations to witness and thus fulfill her promise to Chiaki. The end. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this, turn on the notification, and leave a like to help the channel out.